Good morning, everybody. Get this. Give us one more minute to get all the tech lined up. Linda, can I get a thumbs up if you can see the slides? Yes? Okay, great.
Yes, I can see them.
Wonderful. Thank you. Okay. All right. We'll get started here. Good morning. I'm Chris Brady. It's nice to see a couple of new folks here this morning. Thank you for coming and giving us your time this morning to learn about the Technical Assistance Center and the application window that we currently have open to apply for technical assistance for infrastructure projects. The presentation today is going to briefly introduce the Michigan Infrastructure Office's Technical Assistance Center. We call that the TAC, and then we'll spend time explaining the technical assistance application window. So I would like to suggest, if you have questions, if you put them in the chat, and then if we have time at the end, I'll respond to any of the chat inquiries and also take live questions if we have time at the end, which I think we probably will. Let's go forward. So before I get too into the weeds, we do have to say in today's times that there are some considerations around the opportunities that we are projecting to be opening up over the summertime, late spring, early summer. The notices of funding opportunities are not necessarily out for all of the grants that we're targeting, and we'll go over those grants a little bit later in the presentation. So those NOFOs aren't out, and some of them that have been coming out are significantly changed from last year. And that is because of the, the changeover in the administration, and so there's shifted priorities for funding, different things they would like to emphasize that the infrastructure projects aim to achieve, et cetera. So as the NOFOs come out with the updates, we will be publishing on our website what we call the fact packs or fact sheets. They're kind of summaries of the NOFOs. So we have that, we can read through them and summarize them. We suggest that you start with our fact packs, but then always read a published NOFO from front to back before going forward to apply for technical assistant, or I'm sorry, not that, to apply, because it just, depending on the priorities and of the funder and the priorities of your community, you may or may not qualify. So we've been seeing different revisions like renaming programs. The RAISE program was previously kind of a large highway renovation or repair maintenance type of a program, or even new highways or roundabouts, that kind of thing with RAISE trails and stuff, big projects. Formerly known as RAISE under the BIL, it was renamed to the BUILD program. Some of the merit criteria and requirements are actually changing. Much less emphasis on equity and environmental justice. Some are putting in workforce development, others are taking it out. So it's important to read the details once they come out. And again, we will review them as they come out, but what we have based all of our information on today is what we know so far, which is historical information. So there's our disclaimer for that. Okay, this is what we're going to cover today. I'm going to do a brief intro to the TAC, as I said. Then we're going to introduce the window 3, which is currently open to apply for technical assistance for these federal grant opportunities. Then we'll review a few of the grants that we are targeting that we think will be opening up. There are 2 currently open. And then we have a list of several more that we, as we're, reading the tea leaves and plugging into what's going at the federal level, we anticipate will be opening up this summer. And then we'll do a brief Q&A. Okay, so what is the MIO TAC? It's our mission to help communities secure the maximum amount of federal funding and then successfully execute infrastructure projects with that funding. And we do that by providing capacity building technical assistance, project planning, and also we have a matching funds pool. So talk more about that later, but what those three things mean. But we want to do this by being a partner with you, and we want to work closely with our communities and understand what their priorities are. So we actually will assign a consultant or a team of consultants, typically right to your community once you receive technical assistance, and you'll have regular meetings with them, and they'll get to know you. They'll go combing through your data. They'll be asking you questions. You'll be asking them questions, of course, but they'll get to know you well, and we want to be a partner with you to help you meet your goals. Um, we want to provide a wide variety of the types of support, and we'll get into those a little bit later as far as what we have for federal grant acquisition. We want to ensure, as we're doing this, that our state resources are applied for maximum benefit. So we are in selecting applications for technical assistance, going to be identifying and prioritizing the most impactful opportunities for given communities, and those that align most closely with the state priorities. And when you are completing the application, you will see lots of questions around that, and do your best to answer those questions fully. The review committee that reads the applications looks for that kind of information. And additionally, Michigan has not deprioritized supporting equitable access for underserved and geographically diverse communities. That is still a Michigan goal. So also, finally, we want to provide a model for how the state can promote investment in infrastructure. So we want to be able to showcase innovative ways for the government to encourage sustainable infrastructure investment while building local capacity. And part of the technical assistance is to help build capacity at the local level. We want to be additional, staff hours to do this work, but we also want to help the local staff to learn how to do the work and learn the tips and the tricks and the shortcuts and how to identify the priorities and create the most impactful arguments for requests for funds. So we want to build that local capacity because typically we're only helping a community most likely one time with this. And so when we leave, we want to leave those skills behind. So for those of you that don't know me, I'm Chris Brady. My background is 30 years in nonprofit experience working in community development with local municipalities up in northern Michigan. My nonprofit, my community development arm, we provided program planning and grant writing and technical assistance, just as this TAC is doing now. We did that for all kinds of federal programs like community development block grant and rural development and HUD and MISHDA and DHHS programs. As far as TAC goes, 2024 was the Technical Assistance Center's first year. So we are young, but in that first year, we supported over 70 applications for bipartisan infrastructure law and or Inflation Reduction Act funding. So as the feds release new rounds, we're going to keep opening new windows. If they are continue to rename things and repackage them, we will still continue to provide support. So federal funds is what we aim to bring in. We have a strong team with decades of experience in infrastructure and federal program at MIO. And we're all working to maximize our federal funding coming to Michigan so we can upgrade and modernize our infrastructure to ensure Michigan remains an incredible place to live, right? That's what we're all here for. Okay, included on the team with the TAC is a group of several consultants who are providing the direct technical assistance to communities. TAC has a master contract with McKinsey and Company. And this slide illustrates the depth and the breadth of the experience that McKinsey and its subcontracted providers possess. You'll notice that McKinsey and Company has subcontracted with 3 additional firms to provide all of the types of technical assistance we're offering at this time. McKinsey itself has offices in Detroit, and they have been working. Sorry, I scrolled down past my notes a little too quickly. They've been working in Michigan for over 5 years. They've coordinated responses for many states and over $500 billion in infrastructure funding that they've helped different states applying for. They've also supported 15 regional coalitions and won over $154 million in funding for them. So Cambridge Systematics, they are technical grant writers, and they will be providing that grant writing and benefit cost analysis services if it's required, if one is required for the grant that you would like help with. They will be providing that. And they've supported over 150 federal grant applications, and that's across many multiple infrastructure programs, including the RAISE and the CRISI grants. And they've won $1.5 billion for clients. And then we also have WSP and Jetco, and Jetco is a Michigan-based. WSP is really not doing a lot of our grant writing, but Jetco is a Michigan-based grant writing firm that provides grant writing, and they've won over 500 contracts, which is over $4 billion in funding. So that's basically our team. I'd like to now talk about the technical assistance window. It is currently open and will be open until June 27th, 2025 at 1 minute till midnight. Reminder for you. Currently, we're providing 4 types of technical assistance. Yes, there are 4 types of assistance, but still only 2 applications to choose from when you go into the online portal to choose an application to fill out. We have a separate application for communities seeking grant identification help. The other application is there to request the other 3, the grant writing assistance, the readiness analysis, and or the matching funds. It is possible to just request matching funds, just request grant writing, or any combination, really. For applications that are selected for grant writing and or match reservations, the readiness analysis for grant application will be completed. So I'll talk about that a little bit more later on. It's important to note here that all these services are free. Technical Assistance Center is excited to offer these services at no cost to the recipient community. All costs will be paid directly by the Michigan Infrastructure Office TAC. Because the state of Michigan has already gone through the procurement process and we have these consultants under contract, technical assistance can be deployed very rapidly once a community is selected to receive it. This has really proven to be quite advantageous as we've seen the feds drop really large, often complicated NOFOs with very little time to respond. It's been sort of an industry standard the last several months. So if you are applying, we just ask that you are prepared to spring into action, because we are also. So this is who can apply for technical assistance in this window. As you can see, we support all kinds of municipalities and entities and sub-entities of municipalities. You can see local governments, school districts, utility authorities, municipal utility authorities. It's a mouthful. Urban public transit agencies with support from their affiliated municipal planning organization, rural public transit authorities with support from MDOT, and federally recognized tribes. All are eligible. It's important to note that any eligible non-governmental organization applying must demonstrate support from their local unit of government. And this is with the goal of promoting local coordination with relevant parties. We want to make sure, the technical assistance resources are not, unending. They are a resource, and we want to make sure that local municipalities and are aware of what infrastructure projects are going on, and they support them applying for the technical assistance to benefit their regions. Also, municipal planning organizations and regional planning agencies are responsible for prioritizing and selecting the projects from their member communities to submit to TAC. And they provide the applicant communities with letters of support to submit with their applications. So that is something to be thinking about if you do want to apply, is that you do need to reach out to your MPO or RPA and request a letter of support for your application for technical assistance from the TAC. I'm pretty sure they're all very well aware of this. We've pretty much gotten applications and participants from all regions so far, but if you hit any kind of a barrier there, you can always contact me and I can help work through that. Also, important to note that applicants for any type of infrastructure project must demonstrate access rights and approvals of local site ownership when that is applicable. We have had instances where folks that didn't own the property wanted to apply for federal funds, and we can work through how that doesn't work as far as the feds are concerned, but also the technical assistance recipient has to be the owner of the project. Okay, these are just some quick scenarios to help you decide kind of which type of technical assistance you might be ready to apply for. The first scenario is for communities in this position. Please reach out directly to me. I'm the main person at the TAC, and I'll do my best to point you in the right direction and explain future opportunities that we're working on. That's when you have preliminary ideas about infrastructure improvements that you could make in your community, but no gelled projects so far. But there's a lot of need. There might be a lot of constituent input about the need or that kind of thing. We can help kind of point communities that are at that phase of how do I prioritize? What do we do next or first? We can help you get some guidance there and point you in the right direction to get the process started to isolate, identify, and start working on particular projects. On the other hand, if you have identified specific infrastructure projects and you're interested in finding the federal funding that might be applicable for you, but you kind of need some guidance about that because federal funding opportunities are a bit of a mystery right now. There are many, but like I said, they're being repackaged and they're coming out quickly and then they're not coming out or they're coming out and going back. And we've got a lot going on right now. So we have a grant identification support service that can help identify grants that would be applicable to your project. And then finally, if you have a project and you have identified the grant that you want to apply for, and you kind of skimmed it, you know you most likely your project is eligible, but you need some help writing that grant, or you might need some help preparing some of the technical submissions like a benefit cost analysis, or you need match funding because that grant application that you want to apply for requires non-federal match. Typically, it's an 80% federal and 20% local match, and you may not have all of your 20%. So you can complete an application within this window, and we will consider that for technical assistance. We will notify you when you're preliminarily selected for grant writing or match funding, and then following an initial selection, that's the initial selection, a consultant would be assigned to the community to conduct that readiness assessment that we talked about a moment ago. And that's to help us ensure that the project is sufficiently scoped and competitive and ready for grant writing and our matching funding. So if it's determined that the project is really not ready to apply for the funds or would not be competitive for the particular funding, the opportunity that you have identified, we determine it's not ready, quotation marks, to apply for that grant, we may offer alternative technical assistance options to help you get there or to help you apply for a different, more appropriate opportunity. All right. So how do we do this? You might be wondering, how will the process work to apply? So this is our third window in 2025. We try to time the windows to coincide with federal grant notices of funding opportunities being released. Again, I'll go over our list of federal funding opportunities we're targeting right now. Currently, of the, I think, 11, there's only 2 that are open, but this is a weird environment again, and we are trying our best to anticipate what will be coming back open with our ear to the ground all the time. So we are putting out quite a few this window that you should be looking at and considering for your project, and you can be applying for technical assistance. All right, so for grant identification support, applicants do not need to align, though, with a grant. So we have this targeted list, but if you're just looking to help to have us help you identify a grant, you don't have to obviously identify your own grant. So that should be kind of obvious, but we like to say that you don't have to identify a grant if you're looking for grant identification support. But you should be able to identify your project and specify and give details about the project that you're looking for funding for. So that's important for inclusion in the application. For grant application, technical assistance, and match funding support, you will need to identify the project and the federal funding opportunity you're seeking help to apply for. Again, we talked about the targeting. It is possible to request help for a grant not targeted by the TAC right now. You just do that within the application by selecting the other category. When it asks you what grant are you looking for help with, you can select other. We would like you to then put the grant you're wanting help with in there, explain it. And if you do request help in that category for a grant not specified, you'll need to demonstrate that the opportunity is currently open or on track for awards similar to those that we're kind of specifying in this window. So summer, opening in the summer, kind of awarded in the late fall, early winter 2025. You would need to be able to say that the grant you're looking for help with is kind of falling along that timeline, because what we do is open windows to batch application assistance based on when we think grants are coming out and going to be awarded. So if you're thinking about a grant that you know won't be opening up until January of 26, you wouldn't apply within this window for assistance with that. Also, for each window, we'll estimate the number of awards that we will give of technical assistance for each category. For this window, we anticipate awarding approximately 6 grant identification services and 10 grant writing services and/or match reservations. Of course, these are only estimates. We'll review the applications that we receive. We'll determine the amount of assistance needed, light touch, heavy touch, and then if it's possible for us to award more, we will. In other words, if we receive several applications that only need a light touch, we might be able to select more communities. We hope for that, but we shall see. And also, we may group communities together to receive assistance together in some circumstances. Although for this program, it has not happened quite yet, but it is a possibility. All right. So this is more detail on the process for receiving grant identification support. It's a high-level overview of how the process works. We open the window. Eligible applicant seeking the grant identification support submits the application during the window. And again, the window closes June 27th at midnight. I will review your application with a committee typically we have a committee that represents different state agencies like MDOT or EGLE, different programs within MDOT. Depending on what you're applying for, we will have our different state experts reviewing applications. Then we will award grant identification assistance and confirm that with the recipient, and the consultants will be assigned immediately, and then the consultants will reach out and start to set up a meeting regimen and request additional information. They'll have sort of an intro to the project interview, we call it our kickoff meeting. And then you will express your project goals and all of that kind of stuff and what data you have. to support the need for the project being a priority in your community, etc. And then our consultants will go into research mode, and they will spend several weeks sometimes researching potential funding opportunities to meet those needs. And then they will schedule, they may schedule intermittently, like we need more data, we'd like to meet with you again, or we have some questions for you. But typically there's not a lot of meetings with grant identification, maybe a couple. And then they'll schedule kind of a presentation meeting where they will present their findings to you, give you an opportunity, explain what these opportunities are that would be applicable to your project, and give you an opportunity to ask questions, etc. All right, that's grant identification. Grant writing, a little bit more complicated, grant writing and match, but still kind of follows the flow. You apply within the window. And then we review it with that committee of particular experts, depending on what you're asking for. And then you move into what we call the pre-selection stage, where if selected in the pre-selected stage through the scoring criteria, etc., we will then meet with you and review your application in detail with the consultants. And then we will do, you may have to submit some additional data. And then we'll do that secondary review. We call it the readiness analysis to determine if your project looks competitive based on the current NOFO and the priorities, et cetera, and that you have all the quality data that's necessary, that they're looking for, or that you're prioritizing things that the feds are also prioritizing. We look at all that kind of readiness analysis, and we determine if it's ready to go. If we say it's not ready for grant writing assistance, we will give you the feedback. We will give you what we call our readiness memo, which will tell you what we think needs, what additional data you might need to bring in, or where you could beef it up that would make it ready for this funding opportunity. We'll go over that with you, and you'll know why we didn't think it was ready. And then we also encourage you to request grant writing assistance in the subsequent window, or depending on your level of readiness, we might say, you know what, this is a good project, but not for this funding source. So we would encourage you to accept grant writing identification, which we could assign immediately. So it'll depend on a lot of things. We try to be really flexible and meet the community where they're at there and provide applicable assistance. Now, if your project is ready to roll for that particular funding opportunity, then our consultants will meet with you pretty quickly, so be ready. Within a few days, they will schedule a meeting and they'll create a scope of work, and they'll confirm that for us. We will approve the scope of work, will provide us with a price, we'll approve the whole package. Again, TAC pays for the expense of the grant, of the technical assistance. But then they will deploy, they'll provide you grant writing support. We will work with you to identify potential funding gaps in that if local match is required. And if you cannot meet the local match completely, then we will work with you on a reasonable match request for the Technical Assistance Center. So we have never provided, and probably would never provide, the entire match. So we do require local skin in the game, as you can imagine. So we'll go back and forth with you on that sort of parallel. If you're receiving grant writing assistance at the same time, we'll be kind of negotiating on the match request and helping you identify, or you may be nailing down other sources of match. Once that's all set, we will give you a letter of commitment for match. Your grant is written with the consultants. You submit that application with the match commitment. If you receive the funding, you let us know immediately. We will then start working on a grant agreement for the match portion that we have pledged. If you don't receive the funding, you would also let us know that. And then the match that we pledged to your project would go back into the match pool for other projects. All right, that's the process. Here's a little bit of detail and a little bit of information about the online portal just to get you started. We've worked really hard to make this as simple as possible, but there's always a glitch, there's always a question, and I'm here for that at any time. Email, phone call, I can set up quick 15-minute, walk me through this meetings if need be. That's why we're a technical assistance center. We're here to help. Before filling out any application, though, we do request that you read the entire guidance document. So we work hard to get a lot of the details and instructions in what we call our window guidance document. It's linked in it's linked from the website. It's linked from the press release that we sent out and the email that you got, hopefully. So we ask you to read that entire guidance document before reaching out because it will probably answer your question. But if it doesn't, absolutely, please reach out. You will be submitting your application through what is called the Wise Hive application portal. Don't ask me, I didn't name it, but it's an interesting name. I think it sounds like a lot of really smart bees working really hard to do important work. So I think it's probably well named. But this portal requires that you create an applicant profile. Once created, you assign a person to it. You can go back in and create as many applications linked to that profile as you would like. Future windows, or it is not, you are not limited to only one application per window. So if you have more than one project, you can apply for both. So just to be aware, one profile, multiple applications linked. And that also kind of provides you with sort of a central, when you sign in, there's a central landing page in your profile and you can see all your linked applications and where they are in the process. So that's kind of nice because you can manage, edit, and add applications from that dashboard with your profile. Also want to note that communities will complete applications in the system for their own projects. We have had several instances where a regional planning agency or a municipal planning organization went in and started applications on behalf of communities, but we need those profiles to be the community. They can sit side by side and help a community do it, but that needs to be in the name of the community. We need to have community, municipality, if you will, contacts within those profiles. All right, make sure I haven't missed anything. All right, slide. Again, June 27th, midnight. Nice features about the online portal is that you're able to save your application draft and return to it anytime. So it's not a open it up, we got to put everything in there and I time out and I lose everything or anything like that. It's quite flexible. You can save your application as you go back, go in and out as you want. The grant identification and the grant writing match funding applications are in one application page. So you start an application and then you pick the type and then it opens up either the grant identification application to fill out or the grant writing / match funding application. If you are applying for grant funding only, you still open the grant writing match funding application. If you are applying for match funding, you still open the grant writing / match funding application. It's important to know that because that does trip some folks up. When you're finished with the application, this is important. It's amazing what becomes very important. But when you're finished, you will use the Mark Complete button. That's the first button that you will say, Mark Complete. And that then brings you to a new page with the final Submit button on it. And that means your application is going in. So if you mark it complete, you still must hit Submit on the new page that opens up in order for it to then trigger that I can see it's in there and I can read a submitted application. So please make sure to hit the Submit button. And then back at your profile, where you look at the grant listing on your your page, you'll see a green complete, the word complete written in green when your submission is successful. So you can double check for that and make sure it says complete. Important for you to know that after you've done that and it says complete and you're all good and you realize you forgot to upload your letter of support or something like that, you can go in and edit your application at any time, even after it's submitted, up until the due date and time. So up until midnight on June 27th, you can go in and add more stuff that you think would be important for us to know. And we encourage you to do that because a lot of times things come up or new data comes to light or you remember, and we want to know as much as you want us to know about your project. All right, here's those key dates again. The window is currently open. The webinar is happening now. We have an office hours at 1 o'clock on the 23rd. You can register for that the same way you registered for this. So if you are in the midst of filling out your application and you'd like to get some questions answered, you can attend the office hours. And if you send me an email with some general questions, I might encourage you to just go to the office hours because I might be getting that question from several folks at the same time, and it's much easier to answer it in office hours. Also, I encourage office hours just because folks come and ask other questions that you might not have thought of, and it's nice to listen to your peers and take some of their wisdom as well. We'll close the window on the 27th, and around mid-July, preliminary recipients will be chosen and notified, and the technical assistance will commence. Here's the scoring criteria. So when you go in to fill out the application, and I told you that we have a team of folks, grant reading scoring team, this is what they're going to be looking for. So for grant identification support, evaluation criteria, we look at the project quality. So is there a clear and compelling vision for the project? Is it innovative and collaborative? Is the need for the project clear? So you'll be asked a general describe your project. You're going to want to touch on these points. You're going to want to tell us as much as you have in at the grant identification stage. You're going to want to tell us the details about your project. Where is it located? Who's asking for it, or why are you doing it? What is deteriorating, or what are your, scores on, whatever it might be, the concrete measurement score. Anyway, that's the kind of stuff we want to read. We don't want you to spend days doing this application, but we want to repair the roads. This isn't compelling for our grant team. So there's a middle ground there, and that's kind of what you want to compel the grant team to say, yeah, this is an important project for this community. There's community support. They have thought it through. They've thought about the environmental stuff they're going to have to do. They've thought about how it might impact the community. They've gotten community input, whatever it might be. You want to give us some information on all of that kind of stuff so that the team can say, yep, this project is good and ready to get help identifying funding sources. Additionally, there will be in your application state priorities questions. There'll be a drop-down menu, and you'll get to select the state priorities that you anticipate your project will be addressing. You can be creative and obviously truthful, but be thinking about, does my project, how many of these could I rationally describe, because we'll ask you to describe how, that my project will meet. State priorities are important. These are state allocated funds from the state of Michigan, and we need to help the state of Michigan hit its priorities. So be thoughtful in that, pick as many as you can, and have a justification for each one, and let us know what it is. Okay, for grant writing and match funding support, basically the same kind of information plus a little bit more. So that project quality, when you describe your project, you can also upload if you have, for instance, we just had provided support for the Safe Streets for All applications. If you have a safety plan and you are now asking for help in a Safe Streets for All application for bricks and mortar money to construct, you can upload your safety plan and reference it for us within your grant application and then upload it. We'd love to see that. If you have community input information, or you've done a survey, or you have survey results, or you have data, crash safety data, that kind of stuff that you can upload any of it. We don't want you to have to spend hours creating things, but I think it's really helpful for our team if you have things on file that you can easily upload for us to get a good picture of the community and its need and desire for the project, and what you have that supports that. We also want to be sure that your project aligns with the federal grant opportunity that you selected. So we will assess, we'll have obviously very good knowledge of the notification and what the requirements are. And we're going to look for those keywords within your application to see that you're hitting the federal goals and requirements as best as you can. And again, we know that these NOFOs are not out yet, but we'll hope that you will do your best with what information is currently available. Again, state priorities, your need for the type of support that you're requesting. So if you're asking for grant writing or match, we're going to want to hear about what your capacity is in-house. So do you currently have a grant writer on staff, or do you have a consultant under contract that usually writes your grants, but they don't know how to write a raised grant? Or do you have nobody? It's just a one-man show and you are the engineer and you're the chief engineer and you never wrote a grant before. You need help. We want to know that kind of information. What is your need for our assistance, the assistance that you're asking for? And then we'll look for, we'll ask you lots of questions about your pre-development work and how far along you are with PE, engineering and design. We will ask you about whether you've had community input sessions and how they've gone, et cetera. Anything you can tell us about project readiness and answering those questions fully really interests our scoring team. And then we also, as far as scoring criteria, we award bonus points for rural communities applying, also for disadvantaged community benefit. So that gets to our state goals of spreading the technical assistance around the state. We don't want to concentrate it in urban areas. So if you're rural, you get some bonus points. If you're a disadvantaged or environmental justice community, you get bonus points because those are still very important communities that we wish to invest in Michigan. And then geographic spread. We're working hard to invest technical assistance resources across the entire map of Michigan. So if we have not provided assistance in your region, we will give additional points to folks applying from that particular region. All right, that's what you need to know about what we're looking for. These are the grants that we are supporting in this window. Again, most of them have not come out. So you under the deadline column here, you're going to see summer of 2025 for most of them. We are expecting them based on our conversations with the US DOT and other agencies and what we hear at the state level about what is coming. We are expecting them and we're confident and optimistic that they're coming. But again, I will just put a caveat, what that NOFO notice of funding opportunity actually looks like, we don't know. There will be new priorities, there will be new emphases, and there may be new requirements. So we want to be sure that you are applying for help early so that we can start formulating that project and getting it as polished as possible. But when the new NOFOs come out, we'll be taking a look at them and we might be, kind of strongly encouraging some new priorities being developed or worked into the plan. Again, things like workforce, you may not be thinking about that as far as is a trails program, a workforce program project. But if workforce becomes a high priority, workforce development, workforce opportunity becomes a high priority, we may be wanting you to use that language throughout your application, and we may be asking you to think about figuring out how many job opportunities this project would be providing with the initial investment and ongoing into the future for maintenance and asset management, things like that to think about. So the grant programs that we think that are coming out are the Airport Terminals Program, which supports the upgrading and modernizing and rebuilding airport terminals and airport-owned airport traffic control towers. There's the All Stations Accessibility Program, which provides finance projects to upgrade the accessibility of legacy rail fixed guideway public transportation systems for people with disabilities. So upgrading rail facilities, platforms, et cetera, with disability accessible systems. There's the congestion relief program, should be coming out this summer. That funds projects that improve transit integration and reduces highway peak time travel and improves congestion. There's the what we affectionately call the CRISI program, the Consolidated Rail Infrastructure and Safety Improvements, oftentimes used for overpasses or underpasses or consolidating, where highways meet rail crossings, making them safe. So safety and efficiency and reducing the numbers of intersections like that for intercity passenger and freight rail. We're anticipating the electric or the low emitting ferry pilot program, kind of a neat program for ferries, and it supports existing ferry services, modernizing their related facilities and their equipment. So there may be a ferry that wants to try a low emitting, a new ferry or a ferry port that might want to get a new type of ferry that emits lower emissions for greenhouse gas. You could buy a new ferry. There's the Passenger Ferry Grant Program. Funds capital projects to purchase, replace, or rehab passenger ferries or the terminals that they operate out of and the related facilities. Then there's the PIDP, which currently does have a NOFO out, which is due September 10th in 2025. And that is the Port Infrastructure Development Program. And they fund projects that improve the safety, efficiency, and reliability of the movement of goods into and out and around ports. We had folks that wanted to apply for PIDP, but for a new ferry, but the ferry itself was a passenger vehicle only that didn't move goods. So we had to kind of redirect them to another funding opportunity. So it's important to know we'll do that if it's inappropriate for your need. The Wildlife Crossing Pilot Program is also out, due August 1st, and that provides grants on a competitive basis for projects that seek to achieve a reduction in the number of wildlife vehicle collisions. So typically rural, but not always anymore. Figuring out how to work that, make those roads way safer for wildlife and folks that might be hitting them. So pilot program for transit-oriented development provides funding for projects that improve public transportation and transit. The RCE, Railroad Crossing Elimination Grant, we anticipate that's a big one. There's a lot of money there. That improves the safety and mobility of people and goods by providing highway rail or pathway rail grade crossing improvement projects. We've seen several communities in Michigan get those, and they're pretty significant. Then there's the reduction of truck emissions at port facilities when the trucks are parked there, and they just basically, that's actually a huge emissions producer, is when trucks are idling at ports waiting to be loaded or unloaded. This goal of this funding source reduces those port related emissions from idling trucks. Okay. Next, I want to just introduce you to what we call the fact packs. These are located on our website. We have one for all of those grants listed previously, and again, they will be updated as the actual NOFOs come out. So this is the fact pack we have updated because the PIDP program is out. It is due September 9th. It tells you, these fact packs tell you the total available funding. And then we see here that at least 25% of those funds are set aside for small ports and small projects. So that's kind of cool for our rural folks or our small port folks. They might be urban, I guess. Then we talk about what is the federal goals and merit criteria for award. So this is some of the stuff that we're seeing being updated and changing a little bit. We go over that bullet points, though. It's important to note this is a summary. This is a bullet point to get your mind thinking in the right direction. But you really need to read those NOFOs to see the detail. Then there's a summary page of what the grants can be used for and how much is the award amount, ceilings or minimums or maximums, I guess. How many they anticipate awarding and how many have been awarded in the past and how many have been awarded in Michigan, if we have had a Michigan awardee. Also up in the right-hand corner, you will see if there's a match requirement, a local match requirement and what it is. And also, because direct pay is a program that we provide direct assistance for, we tell you if any of the projects funded through this grant opportunity could be eligible for direct pay rebates. And then we give you what's kind of required in the application, who the eligible entities are, and what the components of the application are. And that's kind of nice to see, like, okay, I'm going to have a project budget. I can't just have it scrawled out on a napkin. I need to have a project budget that's going to be submitted. Are we close to that? Are we not close to that? And is this a good time for us to apply for this? Because we're going to need a project budget. This kind of stuff is good to look at just to make sure you think that you're ready to provide these key grant components. And then we give you in a fact pack examples of past winners so you can see what the projects were that were funded. And this is really kind of cool because you can sort of think about your own project and is it kind of like these projects that have been funded in the past. You can also see who your peers are. And we like to show you this because you may want to, and we encourage you to reach out to those that have been funded and talk about their project and ask them if they have any tips or tricks or what the experience was like for them. You know, did they submit their application and then get follow-up questions? How did the process work? What did they think were the strongest aspects of their application and their project design? Why do they think they won? You can ask them all of those questions, and we kind of give you a place to start here with examples of past winners. So again, this is another current application that is open right now and due August 1st. You can see this fact pack on our website about the Wildlife Crossing pilot. I'm not going to go through this one in detail though, because we're getting close to the end of the hour and I want to make sure we have time for questions. Again, here's our disclaimer one more time. What's been happening as far as NOFOs coming out. This fact pack was, oh, sorry, this is a disclaimer on this. I'm going to move through this real quickly just to be sure I'm giving you all the information. Yeah. Okay, now we're at the thank you, because I do want to thank you for attending today to get as educated as possible for your community on how our process works. I personally love providing as much information and help and assistance and guidance to communities as I possibly can. So no question is too, crazy. They're all good questions. And if you don't think of a question today, you can always reach out. There's my email. If you scan that on your computer right now, it'll take you to our website. And again, we're going to have those office hours coming up. If you want to participate in that and hear what kind of questions your peers are coming up with as they're going through their application, that would be a recommended opportunity for you to take advantage of. I'm not seeing anything in the chat. Wondering if anyone there attending would like to, looks like Craig, you're the only one still on the line. If you'd like to ask a live question, you have a couple minutes.
I think I'm all good. Thank you.
Okay, great. Well, if that's no questions, I think we're good to conclude the webinar. This will be posted as quickly as possible. It takes a couple of days for processing, but then we'll post this to the website. So if you have any staff or community leaders that you'd like to watch and learn about how the program and process works, feel free to have them watch the recording. And again, the website has links straight to the application portal, straight to the guidance, which we encourage you to read before you go to the application portal. And all of the fact packs are there. So thanks for your attention today and have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you.